Greetings and welcome to Retention Chronicles, the podcast with learnings from expert e-commerce brands and partners. I'm your host, Mariah Parsons. If you're here, you're either on a quest for e-commerce enlightenment or you accidentally clicked the wrong link. Either way, I am thrilled you stumbled into our corner of the internet, and I hope you'll stick around. We've got pearls of wisdom for everyone, whether you're running a multi-million-dollar business or simply just starting out on your entrepreneurial journey. Before we unleash the brilliance of today's guest, let's give a shout out to our podcast sponsor, Malomo. Malomo is so much more than just another Shopify app. They're post-purchase wizards, making beautiful and branded order tracking smoother than a jazz solo, so our amazing founders, like our guests, can keep their customers happy and up to date while they track their orders. So hit that subscribe button, like it'll increase your LTV overnight, and go listen to our other episodes at gomalomo.com. That's GOMALOMO.com. Get ready for insights, chuckles, and perhaps a profound realization or two with this newest episode of Retention Chronicles. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Retention Chronicles. Super excited for our guest here today. Madison, thank you so much for joining us. I'm super excited to chat with you today. But first, we'll have you say hi and give a quick intro of yourself to our audience.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for having me. So my name is Madison. I started an e-commerce brand in pregnancy and postpartum skincare with my wife about 3 years ago. Before that, I was at a talent agency, one of the global talent agencies, totally different, doing music touring agency. So been working on Nemah about 2.5, 3 years and loving it so far.
Okay, wonderful. We have to dive in because we haven't had anyone who is in the talent agency, at least that they've shared with on the podcast. So I'd love just to know, like, high level, what that world is like.
It's kind of like you think it is. You know, it's one of the big four agencies, CAA, and I loved my time there. I studied music business and entrepreneurship in school, and then that kind of I loved concerts and loved the live side of it. So that gradually led me into a talent agency. But, you know, a lot of great culture. You know, it's got a bit of a Hollywood aspect to it. I was in the Nashville office, and it's, as you can imagine, probably a bit more casual than LA, New York, London. They've got, I think probably 9 or 10 global offices, several thousand employees, and it was a great place to work and kind of cut my teeth and just learn about, you know, hard work, the 70, 80 hours a week, and learn about growing brands from a talent level and putting them out on the road. So yeah, it was fun. I definitely, I do not miss it as much as I thought I would. I left right at the start of COVID. Concerts were not happening. And so that took a pivot and but it was a great learning experience for sure.
Okay, that's awesome. Would you say that there was kind of like, was there a big transition of a lot of people kind of getting out of the industry with COVID or not? Really?
Yeah, I think entertainment's just got shaken up the last several years anyway, especially Hollywood with the strikes and everything going on. But you know, you're kind of it's client representation. And so the way people have been making money with the advancements in technology and everything going on, I think if you're not like really innovating, then you kind of get left behind. So a lot of people are going off to, you know, start their own management company or just going off into different platforms. So there was definitely a big shakeup and I was grateful for my time there. Definitely glad not to still be doing some of that.
Right. I'm sure the switch of the craziness of it all is a little bit welcome.
Yeah, for sure. It was a really fun time and great place to kind of learn and you know, meet great people, work with great people. Some of the biggest agents in the world represent the biggest talent. So it's always awesome to be able to kind of learn from those people and work alongside them. So
okay, wonderful. And then so my assumption is, and I'm gonna of course try and parallel this to e-commerce because that's what we're here today to discuss. But in that world, you're more concerned when you're talking about like branding and building a brand, more about like the personal brand, especially with social media and like just the influence that like TikTok and Instagram, like influencers more becoming entertainers rather than like your traditional celebrities. So is that the right way, or is that how people are thinking about it? Of like, when you're talking about branding, you're not per se, right? You're not marketing a product, but you're talking about marketing the person, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to parallel a little bit with where we are now, there's there's a lot of people that have to do their job really well, including the talent for it to work. And of course that, a lot of that is social branding and who they are online and to their community. But I think to me there was a little too much that was just out of my control in
Mm-hmm.
my position. I think
Fair.
kind of, there's, whereas like in e-commerce, there's all the, like, you can really, there's a good playbook and you can really innovate by kind of putting those pieces together. And then, there's just so many partners and levers and stuff to pull now that you don't really have to rely on, are they going to wake up and want to work as hard as I am working or want them to, and what kind of feeling they're in. I'm sure many people, in client representation with talent would probably say some of the same things, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then are you musical yourself because you studied music and entrepreneurship?
Not really. I went to Belmont here in Nashville,
Great.
bought my guitar, but I kept it in its case. There was people that were a lot more talented than me, so I decided to go on the other end of it.
Okay, wonderful. I grew up playing piano and guitar. So
Right.
yeah, just, it's a fun hobby to have.
Yeah.
But okay, wonderful. So let's dive into Nemah. You said 2.5, 3 years ago, you founded it with your wife. So give our audience like a boilerplate, basically, of what you all do, and then we can dive into, what was your inspiration behind founding the brand.
Yeah, so we're a vegan skincare brand for mom and baby. We help support the mom through all of her phases of the motherhood journey, and then on to parenting and every phase after that. So, we provide resources, community, and then the best products on the market for her to use right now, primarily during pregnancy and postpartum. And then again, we'll kind of expand our product suite just to more general products she can use after that.
Okay, wonderful. Perfect. So you founded it with your wife. I imagine that of the copious founders I speak to on this podcast, it's usually a personal story that someone finds themselves wanting to start a brand, especially with your background in entrepreneurship and studying it. So can you walk us through what your thought process was with your wife of wanting to found a brand and focus on vegan products that parents can use throughout different stages of pregnancy?
Yeah, it was kind of your traditional, I'm looking for this product, it's not out there situation. Mary was going through her first pregnancy. She's had a digital media brand, kind of an influencer platform for a while, and that's gone into licensing deals and designing
Wow.
collections and
Awesome.
lots of that side. And she knew, one day she wants to have her own brand,
Mm-hmm.
some type of private label, whether that be apparel or skincare or something. So the community and her engagement was really pointing towards the mom and baby space. That's what was really reacting for her. And then going through her pregnancy with our first Navy, who's 5 now, it was she gets so much involvement in the skincare space and top brands in the world, and there's feelings that are attached to those brands when they're on your vanity or when you're using them and buying them, and you're proud and it's sexy and it looks good. And she was just shocked. And kind of the same thing with her community is like, where are these for pregnant women?
Mm.
Scar cream, C-section scars, belly oils, breastfeeding balms, any of the stuff that you're kind of using in this arguably one of the most emotional time periods in your life. There's
Yeah.
not anything that makes you have that same emotion that you can in skincare and beauty and makeup. So that was kind of the aha moment. The scar cream, especially, like, we looked and there was just maybe 1 or 2 brands that were marketing a scar for C-sections. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, this is like such a, I mean, sometimes traumatic, but just such a transformative thing that happens to a woman. And to not have a brand that's supporting her with the product and then the resources of how physically and emotionally tolling pregnancy and postpartum was just kind of mind blowing to us. So So we started working on it about 3.5 years ago, and really just wanted to make sure we're meeting the needs of mom. So, we may go into clean detergents, clean deodorants. Most of the personal care products are bought by the mother in the household. And so it's like, we want to make sure we're establishing trust, during the most emotional time period she's going through, supporting her however we can, and then bringing products that she would need for her and her family after that.
Love it.
Yeah.
So many questions there. When you're thinking about, then let's rope in branding, because I think that especially as consumers, like I can tell that I care more about like the products and what's going into an actual product to make sure that it's clean and make sure that it's like clean for myself, but then also clean for the environment, and making sure that as a consumer, I'm conscious of, what products are going into what I'm using. And I think when I first found your brand, which was through the limited supply Slack channel, I'll shout them out. I was very impressed by the actual look of your products, like the branding side of them. So how did you kind of decide, like, okay, this is how we're going to parallel the cleanness of our products, and making sure that you're coupling that with like something that a woman would be proud to have on her vanity, and then also trying to convey that to your customers? Because I can imagine with your wife's kind of entrance into like having a community before trying to develop a private label, you kind of have an insight into like who your exact consumer is, especially when you're going through it yourself. So I'd love to kind of, I guess, take your brain through the process of like, how are you choosing the look of your private label? My impression is just, as a onlooker, of it's very clean and it conveys the product. It mirrors what you have in your actual product, of you want to have these products that are well made to influence, or to also like your branding influencing the perception of what your consumers have. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I think especially with today's consumer, the design side of it is very important. It's just as important, depending on where you're shopping, or what period you're shopping for in your life, what's in the bottle as how it looks. We kind of see the bathroom as a sanctuary, especially if you're a current parent. That's almost sometimes the only place you can go get self-care. So the feeling of being able to set things out on your vanity and be proud of them is kind of a big deal to us. So we wanted to kind of mirror some of those higher end skincare brands with kind of the pregnancy and postpartum care that we were giving. So same thing with our baby stuff. We wanted to kind of be an art piece for the bathroom. There's like, Mary's background is design, and designing something with, fluffy animals, or just kind of the stuff that's out there on the baby market, just wasn't really going to work on for what we were going for. We wanted to make sure that not only do this product is clean and safe and effective and it works, and that's told, I hope, through our marketing efforts and through our website, we're super transparent on the ingredients, but you feel it, it's heavy, it looks similar to some of those higher end brands that you get hopefully that same feeling of when you purchase it and are setting it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a gorgeous design. When I was scrolling through the website, as I have so much fun doing, right? I also have to point out we have matching water bottles, which is so funny.
Nice.
Look at that. Yep. Mine's being blurred out, but you can tell by the electric teal color that it's the same. Okay, wonderful. So now I want to take kind of how you all were thinking about branding, and then also chat through how you are thinking about the consumer. I don't know if you heard this part, because I know we got disconnected for a second there, but I would imagine with your wife, Mary, having the community aspect before developing a private label, that you have a very, very, I guess, good consensus of what someone would want to see when they're shopping with these products, especially when you're seeing like, okay, there's not really anything in the market right now that is what the community is looking for. And so when I'm thinking about, having a removed perspective from your brand, I can see that there are potentially different ICPs, right? Of like a consumer, depending on what stage of pregnancy or motherhood that they're going through, that certain products would obviously speak more to them. So I love hearing what founders have to say about how they're thinking about their consumer, of like, are you thinking about, okay, just parents, and you see pretty much your consumer is a parent, or are your products also speaking to other people who are outside of motherhood and parenthood? Yeah, because I think it's interesting where you can either choose to get very granular on who your consumer is, but then you can also zoom out and say like, okay, these products anyone could use if they have something that fits the category that your product is solving for.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think right now our product suite is small enough where we're hyper focused on mom. And for the most part, that's mom during the early stages of pregnancy and postpartum. As we start to come out with new products, firming serum for body, a body scrub, body wash, that'll just kind of naturally evolve. But right now, the customer profile is pregnancy, postpartum, new mom, so that 4 or 5 year kind of period of their life. I think really we wanted to kind of mirror the branding with kind of skin tones for a lot of the first few, and just because that's what we're doing. We're caring for your skin in such a delicate time. And then have the baby stuff just be kind of fun and art pieces like that. So, I think one thing we take from Mary's community for sure is we can see 12 years of buying habits. What are the price points and colors that they like? And what do they react to? And she creates content. And so she knows also like what is going to catch someone's eye for other people to create content. We certainly made the brand in mind, like, will this photograph well? Will it sit out on the vanity? Or are people going to want to share this? And I think that's important, especially for DTC brands. In crowded spaces, we're kind of in a niche, but still overall personal care is a very crowded space. So are people going to want to share this, and why? Is it what's in the bottle, how the sensation it makes them feel? How's the packaging, with the unboxing experience? There's so many things that go into that, but for mothers, especially, they want to share what they're using, what they're going through, and why they're using that. So we kind of made that, the products and the branding with that in mind, to make sure that we're kind of capturing that moment and filling that need. And again, it kind of always goes back to, for us, like, we want them to be proud in the decisions they're making, both, just everyday life decisions with their parents and, with their children and toddlers and newborns. And then with their pregnant skin during pregnancy, it's very thin. Your baby skin is very thin. So it's actually really, really important what you're putting on your skin and what you're putting on your baby skin. So just making sure you can trust us, the science is there behind our products. And then when you're holding it, when you're opening it, when you're using it, it gives you a feeling that, some of the incumbent brands, belly butter, just don't, you just don't really feel like I'm doing something better for myself by using this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wonderful. That's super insightful. So I want to tap into more of like the customer experience and the unboxing experience in a bit, but I want to get your opinion on, once you think you get to that point where you're, growing the ICP and increasing the amount of SKUs that you have that you're offering, do you think it will be easier or harder to kind of have your market to your consumers? Because I've heard the arguments both ways, and obviously as a marketer myself, right, I see that once you start expanding and offering more, then and your ICP grows, which is great because there's new areas of the market that you can target, but it also can be an added challenge, and maybe a welcome one, of instead of just focusing on copy or imagery around this specific person in this specific life stage, you now have to become more generalized. And how do you continue to stand out in a market that is saturated when you're still growing? So is that something that, I guess, preoccupies a sector of your mind when you're thinking about scaling?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of that for us comes down to how much and what channels we're spending on paid media.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been able to grow it with 30 to 35% of sales are coming in from paid. So to me, that is an advantage for us, that we're able to capture her trust outside of kind of the levers and mechanisms that paid media do. So we don't have to continuously find all those new customers. And then again, it's kind of solving that next need. I think a benefit for us is we know almost certainly that she will need the next products that we release, especially if it's in the baby category or kid category, or firming and toning. It has kind of stuck out for us, in whether a body lotion, body serum, a kids detangler spray, a kids scar cream, SPF for kids. Like we do know that, if they used our first set of products and we get them in during pregnancy and postpartum, we can introduce stuff that we're fairly certain they'll need after that. I do think it will be harder, but just different too. Right now, I don't want to say it's easy, but we have such a targeted demographic that we're going after. But it's also, that has its challenges. It's quite hard with a lot of the iOS stuff to find people that are in that category. I think more often you can find people that are in the parenting category. So I'm really excited to start growing our kids SKU count, to make sure that, okay, we served her needs during these phases. Like, this is what her and her family need, moving forward. Also, email and SMS is a big one for us. So I think if we can keep getting that right and get them in the funnel while they're in this time period. And two, I say your customer buying habits are never more drastically changed than when you, as a woman, you find out you're pregnant. You're like reading all the labels. You're just a lot more intentful on what you're buying. So if we can capture the trust then, I think, and we have a good product to come out with body care moving forward, I think we'll be able to get them back for that stuff. And we have, the few SKUs we have for postpartum or for baby, over half of those buyers purchase our mom products, which tell us they do trust us, and we know also what they want next. We're able, through Mary, to kind of get that direct line of communication. What are these 4 products? Which of these 4 products would you guys like to see next? And it's pretty clear, what the 2 are. So I'm excited. That's the difficult piece with being bootstrapped is being able to innovate with new products, and as a CPG brand, it's cash intensive. So we're out kind of trying to raise some money right now to pour some fuel on what we know is working, and then again get some more products out for mom to get our repeat customers back. But yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So I love that you are like polling essentially your consumer base, right on social media. And I think that's unique in that someone has a community before founding something. I feel like a lot of the times it's the opposite, where founders will obviously have a product and then they become more of a public personality, or they're the face of the brand, especially with the rise of e-commerce and all that stuff. Yeah. So I want to dive into education and how you're kind of using those consumer insights to, like you said, inform what you all are pouring the gasoline on and creating more of. And with education, especially around parenthood and motherhood, I know from the mothers in my life, I'm not a parent, but I know from my own mother and my friends who are currently mothers, and that it's a very, I guess, high pressure, high opinionated realm where there's a lot of, advice and a lot of content and a lot of different products that can be chosen, right? Just while you're looking at adding this child into your life. And it can be a very, I guess, I don't want to say misleading, but a very, I guess, cannibalized market of like, this is quote unquote the right thing to do. Yeah. And if like you don't do this as a parent, or if you don't raise your kid this way, or, these are the rules and this is like the hack, right? So, and I think there's a lot of things that go into that conversation of just, we have so much that we can consume through social media and everyone's experience is different. But there's the caveat, right? Of like, every single experience is different. So it has a multitude of ways that you can go about parenthood. And because it involves inherently like a a child, it can be very, very quickly, it can be a difficult conversation to have. And so I would love to get your opinion of how you're approaching education and making sure that you're getting the right information out, and like the science back ingredients that you have in your products, you're sharing that. Like you mentioned earlier in this episode of, baby skin is thinner. So it really, really matters what you're putting on what products you're putting on the baby's skin. So how are you using those consumer insights to maybe see pockets of, okay, this is maybe where our consumers could use like a video of content around this versus, okay, this is, something that our consumers are very educated on. How are you deciding which content to educate your customers on?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of many things. One is like, as a brand, I think it's important to have a couple like North Star brands that you follow along closely with. Some of ours are like Bobby, the infant formula brand, Parallel, Frida Mom, Frida Baby, just people that are really kind of pushing the boundaries, and you can see what's reacting, and ideally they're a few years ahead of you, and not 20, have been here around
It's
20.
attainable. Yeah.
Yes, so that you can say, you know what, people are really reacting to this stuff. We have a medical advisory board, so we have dermatologists, an allergist, perinatal mental health specialists on there. So that's a big piece of it. And we're starting to roll out more things with that. We've got a social communication platform called Mini Chat, to where we can directly communicate back and forth, kind of like the Klaviyo of social.
Interesting. Okay.
With our customers, and have kind of flows that go to them. So we're launching one this week, I think, it's Maternal Mental Health Awareness Month. So what are you struggling with? This, or this. Okay, here's some resources to go back from that. And we think it's important to amplify real, raw, emotional, vulnerable stories from our community, but at the same time have expert opinion on here and be like, hey, just for what it's worth, like, here's stories, take these with salt, but like, everybody's story matters. You can tell your story here, you can have community with us. And at the same time, like, here's somebody that does this for their job, and their purpose is to help women through this period of their life, whether that's on their skin or going through the postpartum depression, or all the different changes that come during pregnancy. So I think it's helpful to have a balance of kind of unprofessional opinions. And we hired a partnerships and community manager as our first hire in marketing. And that was, to do many things, one of which was to kind of put some guardrails on what we're doing to amplify community stories, and making sure that we're moving the ball forward there. I think a big piece of that is making sure it's a safe space for everybody. But like you said, we've gone back and forth. Do we create a Facebook group or a Geneva group? And we're not there yet. We're close, but it feels like there could be some very opinionated people within the space and it might go south. So we're figuring out how to kind of put some guardrails on it. But what we're doing, at least, is saying, like, bring anything you want to us, and we'll amplify it, however we can. And so that's a piece of it. I think another piece is just making sure, from the expert, what's going inside the bottle checks out. So we're, Sephora clean, we're sold in Europe, and they're way more stringent on
so much more. I'm envious of their standards, for sure.
So we kind of go at it with definitely the science-backed element there, and making sure that there's nothing to worry about on that side, for sure. That just, you can kind of always trust us that we're going to check that box, that it's going to be clean, safe for you, safe for your baby. And then now let's make sure we're meeting your needs, from a design perspective, that feeling, and then from a community perspective, I think is kind of a big piece for us. One thing I think is really exciting, we haven't started doing it yet, but kind of community polling, you mentioned. There's so much software now that we can really develop before we develop our packaging and formulas, and just say, which one are you guys kind of leaning towards? Here's 3D renders, and now we can make a full-on ad of the bottle in 3 different colors and just see what reacts. Or we can kind of do it in the shadows and start testing it on social and see how that reacts too. And there's a lot of data that you can get from, just putting out those kind of A/B tests. And then we're lucky with Mary's community because a lot of her community is our community and is in those phases of life. So we can just straight up ask them, like, which ones do you guys want to see next? I'm excited to take it that next step with some of the new software partners we put in place to start getting packaging renders, before we launch them.
Yeah, I love it. Do you want to shout out any of those packaging vendors just for founders if they're looking for something similar?
Yeah, for sure. It was a really cool company. It's called Glossy with an
Glossy. Okay.
LSSI. Basically, you can bring them. They make 3D render content, however you want to use that. So design reviews, just using it on social ads and stuff. I think a big solve for us is going to be, design reviews before we launch, but then also not having to do as many photo shoots.
Right.
Mary's ground, the brand and the aesthetic has to be a very certain level. And so those sometimes can get kind of cash intensive and they turn out beautiful, but for a bootstrap brand, it's tough to consistently keep those up. We found that we launched 5 new products last year, and a big piece of it was the creative around that. So I'm excited to kind of test the boundaries on what tech can do for us there, and maybe not have so much, so many photo shoots and everything lined up for those.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just time and money intensive. I can imagine of just having to think through all of that. So I'll have to check them out. Glossy. And then you mentioned Mini Chat as well. You said like Klaviyo of social. Is that like a plugin for?
Yeah, so it basically, just think of it as your Klaviyo for e-commerce. So you can run direct communication back. I'm sure anytime you've seen like comment X for the link, it's either through MiniChat or one of those kind of things. But MiniChat has a lot of features where you can really just have a 2-way conversation and set up flows for them. It helps on customer service stuff. A lot of people just kind of go to the DM when they're doing something, and you can kind of Instagram and Gorgeous have a few features, but this is just kind of like a lot more robust to be able to communicate with. And you can run discounts and promotions just to exclusive, lists within that. So we just launched that a couple months ago and are growing that list, but it's been a great platform for us so far.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I always love hearing, the tech side of what people are finding to be innovative and helpful in the space. So more than happy to give them shout outs. You mentioned that through Mini Chat, the customer support angle of just being able to like automate some of these things and customize, what you want that customer communication to look like. So I'd love to go into the post-purchase side of things, the post-purchase experience of what are you all concentrating on when someone buys with you, of like, what do you want to make sure that the customer is seeing? What kind of communications are you sending out? Are you automating for your customers?
Yeah, I think it is a very delicate blend of people and tech, because if it is tech, people can usually tell pretty early on.
Yeah.
And that does not garner brand loyalty. We hired a dedicated customer service person a few months ago. We kind of piecemealed it with our small bootstrap team and just found that like we're just taking too long to get back to people. A lot of these are simple things. So of course, Gorgeous has stuff that it can solve for there, but it's just some of those things that are not so clear. You need somebody that is kind of answering the phone, so to speak, at least, just depending on volume, however many times every day, to come in and just make sure everything's all right. The unboxing experience is big for us. One of the pieces that I didn't really realize as early on is how important the 3PL partner is. I mean, I knew, okay, we're doing all this work, they have to get it to the goal line, but I didn't realize if there's any miscommunication on how you want your customers to receive it, you're pretty disconnected by that. It's a warehouse guy in whatever city, especially if you're at one of the big 3PL companies, and there's all the processes to go through and just doesn't really work. And so, customers were getting things that were not okay. I had to drive a 26-foot truck to Louisville to just pick up all my stuff. It was just like,
Oh my God.
it's not working out anymore. I need everything back. We're going to figure this out, and then, we'll take the next steps. But unboxing experience is big. The post-purchase customer experience, customer service is big. Post-purchase flows, we take a lot of data on our intake form on where you're at in your pregnancy, postpartum, motherhood journey, so that we make sure we're not sending you something that's just very off. And all that stuff matters, I think, to make sure you're getting customers back. Is do they feel like I'm just, one of these, just a number here, or do they actually like know where I am? Are they understanding some of my things? You have to also take it with a grain of salt. People are just going to complain about things,
Of
and
course, yeah.
you've got to have some sort of processes in place to, you know, smile and say thank you. I guess one thing, we brought on a great partner too. I'll bring them up just a few weeks ago, Onward, and it's package protection, shipping protection, customer service on the back end of that too, kind of if you want to add that. So, their thing, and it really resonated with me, is for early stage brands to keep that want to have a high customer experience, a high level of customer experience. You can't really do that profitably because there's always going to be people, there's mail services that just don't show up. There's going to be people that just complain because the box is dented, but it's still working fine. Whatever, there's things that you can do now to solve for that and make sure no matter what, I'm not sacrificing my customer experience. If your box doesn't show up because UPS lost it, USPS, whatever, got your new one, and that's where that little chunk of money comes from and takes care of it. So I think it's really important to, if you're trying to grow a brand, that's not mass, and you need kind of a premium level of experience, then pay attention to the post-purchase customer experience, how they're getting it, all of that stuff. It really matters.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like most people, even if they don't have their own brand, like they're not thinking about from an operations level of a founder. As a consumer, it's an easy test, right? Because you can ask yourself of, if I have a bad customer experience, what's your personal willingness to like shop with that brand or those people again, right? Your frustration levels can overtake the product quality or the branding or anything that you like supporting with that brand. If at the end of the day, you have a terrible experience, and whatever the experience is, say product is broken or whatever, and then you're met with the customer support team that isn't helpful, or a bot or something, and you're not able to kind of rectify the process of something that you paid for and you're disappointed with, then it can be pretty damning. And so I think I always like to remind listeners of, like, even if you're thinking about founding a brand, because we've had people reach out, right, and just share that all these things can be so difficult. It's very easy to get insular and think about, like, okay, there's so many different things that you have to solve. But when you think at the end of the day of, okay, bare minimum, what should you care about? And like, that's the customer experience is what it all whittles down to, right? What's that sentiment that the customer is left feeling with? And you hope that it's a good one. And if it isn't a good one, then you hope that you can change the majority of them. So I love hearing that you're focused on, shipment protection and making sure that you want that high level of customer success or customer support, even if you aren't able to, have that in-house. So I love hearing that there's, people out there, partners out there, ensuring that, you can focus on, you can rest easily, or rest easier maybe, of knowing that your customers will be taken care of if something goes wrong in the delivery process.
Yeah, and you think as a founder, like, you're doing all this work to get people to buy your stuff, and then when they buy it, what's the experience? So we really care. We have branded boxes. Every package we send out is in a nice soft touch branded box. It's got a branded booklet that tells you about the brand and products. A lot of times there's notes from Mary or myself, just kind of putting those in there if we see some of that. A lot of times, like, people will just kind of I think just generally take things to the 98-yard line and then not realize the last two are probably the most important. So that's where we've kind of realized the last couple of quarters is we cannot sacrifice on who is packing these things up. And then, the service and what they're getting after has to be top tier because they're not coming back. And you just don't really have a brand if people are not coming back to buy it more than once.
Yeah. Yeah. The CAC costs they're too high to not focus on customer retention. And hence why I find myself very interested in this space and why this podcast is called Retention Chronicles. So with that, I want to wrap us up because I know we're getting to about that time, which is always goes by so quickly. But I always like to provide space if there's anyone else you would like to shout out or any products or any launches that you're looking forward to. Or if you just want to provide, any sort of last thought touches to our audience, I would like to, do that now.
Yeah, I think even just to dovetail on what we were just talking about, with everyone's on Amazon now, so they have the growing brands have a hard time to keep up with that. So I do think it is important to make sure you are putting the right partners in place, and a lot of that just comes with software. Take all of it with a grain of salt. You never kind of know like who's getting a kickback for this or that and like what's going on, but like there's a lot of great software and great minds out there that are solving those problems. And so don't be afraid. You can do a lot with a very small team because of all of the pieces of software that are out there. You're gonna strike out on some and some you're just not really going to know until you get in there what the experience is like. But I think a lot can be done now, with Shopify and all these software partners coming out that really help things like getting your customers back and making sure the messaging to them is tailored and segmented. So yeah, I was excited to come and talk about all this. This is really fun.
Okay, wonderful. Makes my day. Thank you so much, Madison. It was a great chat, and I'm excited to stay connected and keep cheering you all on.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great to meet you.
You as well.